Good evening, my dear students. Welcome to the session for chapter number 9 of auditing and assurance subject. So after a long time we are meeting. So I can see Dhyanesh, Anish, Jash, Kashif, Alok, Jyoti, Harshita, Priyanka all have joined and I am very good. I hope the same for you also, students. So thank you for welcoming me back for this session. I also missed teaching all of you. I also missed taking all these sessions. So I hope that the chapters that have been covered so far in these sessions, that is from chapter number 1 till chapter number 8 for this paper number 6. I hope that you all have understood those chapters. You all have gone through those chapters and you all have started learning. And if any of you have not started learning, then please start, understanding, reading the modules and start preparing for your exams. Yes. So this is the welcome session for module number 2, right? So we'll be starting with chapter number 9, which is audit of items of financial statements. And student, as I always, before starting any session, I always tell you as to why are we studying this chapter? Why this chapter? So for that, we'll be starting with a discussion with respect to financial statements, right? So with a very positive note, let us start with today's chapter, which is what? Audit of items of financial statements. Okay? So very important chapter. So if you just have a look at the last year papers, so this chapter may come from marks 10 to 20, right? A very important chapter from your examination point of view. Also, students, practically also, see, so far you have understood till chapter number 8, that is, what are the various standards on auditing that you need to apply, right? We have studied the standards with respect to series 200, then essay 300, 315, 330 we have done, then essay 500, and with respect to audit evidence, and with respect to the 500 series, the list is very long, right? And the last essay that you did in detail is what? Essay 520, right? So by so far, you have understood as to what audit procedures are, right? Where to apply the standards on auditing, what is contained in standards of auditing, right? Now, students, when the auditor is giving an opinion on the financial statement as a whole, see why the auditor will perform the audit procedures, why the auditor will apply the standards on auditing, because he is conducting the audit of financial statements, right? Now, if you remember in chapter number 3, if you remember when I took the topic of assertions with you, which we did quite in detail in chapter number 3, this paragraph, I asked you to mark it as very relevant. Why? Because this paragraph actually tells you as to what is the basis of conducting an audit, right? So let us just have a look at this paragraph. And why are we discussing this? Because I want to tell you as to why you are studying a topic with the name audit of items of financial statement, right? So that this paragraph, which we have done in detail in chapter number 3, let us just have a look at it again. It says that every financial statement contains an overall representation in addition to specific assertions so far discussed where in chapter number 3. Each financial statement purports to present something as a whole in addition to its component details. For example, an income statement purports to present what? Results of operation, and balance sheet presents what? Financial position. The auditor's opinion is typically directed to the overall representation, right? Now the next line, which is very, very important with respect to this chapter number 9. But to formulate and offer an opinion on the overall truth of these statements, balance sheet, P&L, the auditor has first to inquire into the truth of many specific assertions, expressed or implied, positive or negative, that makes up these statements. out of his individual judgments of these specific assertion, he arrives at a judgment on the financial statement as a whole. So auditor has to give an opinion on the financial statement as a whole, right? But in order to arrive at that opinion, auditor will have to conclude with respect to various items, various assertions that are appearing in the financial statement. Now, in this chapter, we are going to see as to how the audit of particular item of financial statement will be conducted. If you have done that essay 200 series, you have done essay 300 series, you have done essay 500 series, like whatever essays are in your syllabus, you have covered that in detail. Now, how actually to apply them? If there is one essay 505 with respect to external confirmation, now when the auditor is checking one of the specific items of financial statement, let's say which is debtors, how to apply that? Right? So we will be discussing in this chapter in quite detail as to how to audit each and every item of financial statements, right? So there are a number of items that appear in the financial statement, and unless and until auditor concludes with respect to the truthness and fairness of all such items, he cannot give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole, right? So ये समझ आता है कि ये टॉपिक क्यों पढ़ना है ना, और ये रेलेवेंट क्यों है. एक तो एग्जामिनेशन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से आई हैव टोल्ड यू दैट yes, you can get a question like that may range from 10 to 20 marks, and students see general answers won't fetch you good marks, है ना? If you are being asked, let's say with respect to assertion ka topic is clear to you now. So let's say if you are asked about how to check the existence of debtors, है ना, and you give certain general answer whereby existence ke liye you are not giving any answer, so that won't fetch you good marks, right? So general answers won't work here. And students, one more thing, this chapter is very much easy. Why? Because see, you have done various provision related to various items of financial statement in your accounting standards, in your company law, right? And when the auditor is verifying all such items, he will have to check whether such provisions, the accounting standards, the provisions mentioned in the Companies Act 2013, or whether the presentation as per Schedule 3 to the Companies Act, whether that has been done or not. So you already have that knowledge, right? So this chapter is very, very simple. So please don't go after writing what general answers, because you already know what is to be written, right? But how specifically that is to be written in auditing and assurance subject, that we'll be discussing in this chapter, right? So why we are studying this chapter, I hope it is clear, right? Now I said audit of items of financial statement. ठीक है? Audit क्या होता है? By so far it should be in your blood. You should be aware as to what is audit, है ना? Now, as per SC 200, Hana, so these explanations are just general explanations, though not given as such specifically in this chapter, and you need not copy them also. Okay? Okay? Now, financial statements. So SC 200 says that financial statements are what? Structured representation of historical financial information, including related notes intended to communicate an entity's economic resources or obligations at a point in time or changes therein for a period in accordance with the financial reporting framework. So financial statement is what? It is a structured representation of what? Historical financial information. Transactions that happen during the year and balances as on a particular date as per the applicable financial reporting framework. Further, students, as per section 2, clause 40 of the Companies Act 2013, what all is included in financial statement? Let us just have a look at that. So financial statement in relation to a company includes what? The balance sheet, and you all know that balance sheet is prepared as on a particular date, Hana? So as at the end of the financial year. Profit and loss account or income and expenditure account, as the case may be, for the financial year. Why? Because it is for the period ending, right? Then financial statement also includes cash flow statement for the year, the statement of changes in equity, and the explanatory notes annexed there too, right? So students, unless and until auditor obtains sufficient appropriate audit evidence with respect to all such components of financial statement, he cannot give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. And that is why we are now studying in detail as to how to audit the individual items of a financial statement. So what is the name of your chapter? Audit. That is an independent examination of financial information of any entity. Remember, I am expecting that you all now have understood this definition, Hannah, of items of financial statement. Why? Because now we have understood that until and unless auditor concludes about each and every individual item of the financial statement, he cannot give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. So item will include each and everything that is appearing in balance sheet, that is appearing in P&L, that is appearing in cash flow, fund flow, that is appearing in your statement of changes in equity, or that is appearing in your notes, right? So is it clear so far? And students, if you have not done the various sections, or if the log sessions have not been started, don't worry. We will be discussing each and everything which is relevant for this subject in detail. Okay? So, Jash, I hope this is clear to you. Your query is resolved, I hope, right? Now, so what we have done, अभी तो बस यही समझाए कि ये चैप्टर पढ़ना क्यों है, ठीक है? Whereby we have understood that financial statement में actually आता क्या क्या है, ठीक है? Now, when the auditor is giving an opinion on the financial statement as a whole, he has to consider various assertions, है ना? Assertions क्या होते हैं? हमने chapter number 3 में बहुत डिटेल में पढ़ा है. But yes, since this entire chapter is based on the concept of assertion, I'll be taking it again. ठीक है? But now, just try to understand one more thing. ठीक है? Chapter number 3 में, when we discussed about risk assessment procedures, test of controls, and substantive procedures. First of all, tell me, ये सब होते क्या हैं? Risk assessment procedures, test of control, substantive procedures. Give me one word for all these procedures. Quickly, I need answers from each and every one of you. Because chapter number 3 में मैंने बहुत डिटेल में पढ़ा है ये आपको. Quickly send in your replies. If I want, like, with respect to risk assessment procedures, test of controls, and substantive procedures, if I want like one phrase from you, in सबको क्या बोल सकते हैं? One term from you, what can be that? Varsha, you are absolutely correct. I need answers from rest of you also. So Harini, I am also blessed. Thank you. Exactly. So Jyoti, Jash, Alok, Aman, Dhyanesh, absolutely correct. These are what? Audit procedures. Hana? So if you just have a look at the definition, you will see that the auditor performs all these procedures, be it risk assessment procedures, be it test of control or substantive procedures, to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence, or to evaluate, let's say with respect to test of control, to evaluate the operating effectiveness of control at the assertion level. रिस्क असेस भी, जो हम रिस्क ऑफ मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट को असेस करते हैं, आपने चैप्टर नंबर 4 में डिटेल में पढ़ा, वो भी एट द assertion लेवल होता है ना? सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर्स, दैट इज द ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स डिजाइन्ड टू डिटेक्ट द मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट, दैट आल्सो हैपेंस एट व्हाट? द assertion लेवल. सो दिस कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ assertion लेवल इज so very important, and students, you will see that it also simplifies the audit process, है ना? सो कैसे सिंप्लीफाई करता है, इससे पहले अब डिटेल में हम समझते हैं कि assertion लेवल क्या होता है. बट ये समझ आया ना, हम जो भी ऑडिट प्रोसीजर कर रहे हैं, जैसे रिस्क असेसमेंट प्रोसीजर इज परफॉर्म्ड एट व्हाट? फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट लेवल एंड assertion लेवल. टेस्ट ऑफ कंट्रोल अगर आप करते हो टू चेक द ऑपरेटिंग इफेक्टिवनेस ऑफ कंट्रोल, दैट इज एट व्हाट? assertion लेवल. सब्सटैंटिव प्रोसीजर डिजाइन टू डिटेक्ट मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट एट assertion लेवल. तो इतना इंपॉर्टेंट है कि ऑडिटर assertion लेवल पे ही अपना ऑडिट प्रोसीजर परफॉर्म करते हैं. So let us just try to understand as to what is meant by assertion. Yes, we have done this in detail in chapter number 1, है ना. chapter number 1 में there was certain reference. chapter number 3 में तो बहुत डिटेल में किया. chapter number 9 में भी we are going to do it. Why? Because this entire chapter is based on what? The concept of assertion. Aman, you are absolutely correct. चैप्टर नंबर 1 में हमने डिस्कस किया है. एंड सी हाउ दीज चैप्टर्स आर इंटर रिलेटेड, है ना. चैप्टर नंबर 1 का भी नॉलेज आया इधर, चैप्टर नंबर 3 का भी नॉलेज आया. इसीलिए कहते हैं कि कोई भी सेशन हो उससे पहले प्लीज यू मस्ट हैव प्रिपेयर्ड द चैप्टर्स दैट हैव ऑलरेडी बीन कवर्ड. ठीक है. सो लेट अस ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड this definition of assertion, and then we'll start with the various items, the audit of various items of financial statement. देखो अब assertion क्या होता है. So बहुत simple language में समझेंगे. So assertion, the term assertion, if you look at the dictionary meaning, it means what? Declaration, कुछ दावे के साथ कहना, declaration, or you can say representation, है ना. तो assertions का ना एक रिलेशनशिप है किसके साथ? मैनेजमेंट के साथ और ऑडिटर के साथ भी. दोनों के साथ assertion का कुछ रिलेशनशिप है. नाउ व्हाट इज दैट? So I always tell you that if the management of a client, like our client, the management wants to tell the users of the financial statement, ki users to know we have plant and machinery worth rupees 2 crores. Let's say plant and machinery and the value is rupees 2 crores. So management माइक उठा के announcement नहीं करेगा. Management उसको कहाँ mention करेगा? Financial statements में. मैनेजमेंट को कोई भी इंफॉर्मेशन देना है टू द यूजर्स ऑफ द फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट की ड्यूरिंग द ईयर जो हमारा सेल्स हुआ ना, वो लेट्स से हमारा 50 लाख का हुआ है. सो मैनेजमेंट को माइक उठा के न्यूज़पेपर में प्रिंट नहीं करवाना है. मैनेजमेंट को वो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में प्रेजेंट करना है. When the management is giving such information in the financial statement, that is what management is representing, declaring. कुछ दावे के साथ करिए. मैनेजमेंट अभी कंफ्यूज थोड़ी ना है कि प्लांट मशीनरी 2 करोड़ का है या नहीं, या सेल्स 50 लाख का है नहीं. मैनेजमेंट इज डिक्लेयरिंग इट, मैनेजमेंट इज रिप्रेजेंटिंग इट, मैनेजमेंट इज asserting it, है ना. सो assertion, डिक्लेरेशन और रिप्रेजेंटेशन, है ना. सो हु मेक सच रिप्रेजेंटेशंस और assertions और declarations? भाई जिसको फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स बनाना है, मैनेजमेंट इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर प्रिपरेशन एंड प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट ना, तो मैनेजमेंट ही तो रिप्रेजेंट करेगा ना. क्लियर, है ना. तो मैनेजमेंट को कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन देना था, तो मैनेजमेंट को हमने क्या बोला? assertion का कंसेप्ट यूज करो, दैट इज रिप्रेजेंटेशंस बाय मैनेजमेंट, राइट. Explicit or otherwise. Explicit is what? Expressly mentioned. And otherwise is what? Opposite of explicit, which is what? Implicit, and which means what? Implied, obvious, है ना. तो मैनेजमेंट कुछ ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन रिप्रेजेंट करता है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में. Some part of it can be expressly mentioned and some it was obvious. अब plant and machinery 2 crore का है, तो this is obvious now that this building exists as on 31st March. It is obvious now कि this building, the company is having the right over such building, such plant and machinery, right. It is obvious now that all plant and machinery that should have been included in this amount has already been included by management. तो ये implied है ना. So explicit or otherwise, right, that are embodied in the financial statement. Embodied is what? Included as a part of financial statement. अगर आपको देखना है बिल्डिंग का क्या वैल्यू है, प्लांट एंड मशीनरी कितने का है, सेल्स ड्यूरिंग द ईयर कितना हुआ, परचेजेस कितना हुआ, कंटिंजेंट लायबिलिटी है या नहीं, कहां पर देखोगे? फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स में ही तो देखोगे ना. सो दिस इज द रिलेशनशिप ऑफ assertion विद मैनेजमेंट, रिप्रेजेंटेशंस बाय मैनेजमेंट, एक्सप्लिसिट और अदरवाइज, that are embodied in the financial statement, है ना. अब मैनेजमेंट ने कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन दे दिया फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में. Now we have to convert these financial statement into audited financial statement. तो audit भी तो इसी information का करोगे ना, audit भी तो इन्हीं assertions का करोगे ना, audit भी तो इन्हीं representations का करोगे ना, right? So now what is the relationship of assertion and auditor? So as used by the auditor, auditor is using such assertions only, whether explicit or otherwise, to consider different types of potential misstatement. Very very important. Potential क्या होता है? Likely, possible. अभी पता थोड़ी ना है, fraud थोड़ी ना है जो आप preconceived notion that something wrong has been done के साथ करोगे. Audit है ना, which is never started with a preconceived notion that something wrong has been done, है ना. तो that is why the term potential, which is very very important, misstatements, it can be due to fraud or error that may occur. Again this word may, हो सकता है ना हो, अभी कंफर्म थोड़ी ना है, तभी तो चेक कर रहे हैं, तभी तो ऑडिट कर रहे हैं ना. बेस्ड ऑन दैट ऑडिट, बेस्ड ऑन द ऑडिट एविडेंस, बेस्ड ऑन द कंक्लूजन्स ही तो बताएंगे ना वेदर मिसस्टेटमेंट है या नहीं. तो पॉसिबल मिसस्टेटमेंट दैट में अकर, है ना. तो देखो कितना सिंपल है डेफिनेशन assertion का. We now know that assertion definition is divided into two parts. पहले पार्ट में हम बताते हैं कि मैनेजमेंट रिप्रेजेंट करता है. Management is giving certain representation, certain information in the financial statement. Second part में we are saying auditor वो ही assertions तो check करेगा ना, है ना. Auditor और कुछ इंफॉर्मेशन थोड़ा ना चेक करेगा. फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट में जो इंफॉर्मेशन आ रही है, सिंस इसी के ऊपर ओपिनियन देना है, सिंस अब इन्हीं फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट को ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट बनाना है, तो इन्हीं के आइटम्स को तो चेक करोगे ना. सो लेट अस हैव अ लुक एट दिस डेफिनेशन अगेन. रिप्रेजेंटेशंस बाय मैनेजमेंट, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement as used. This is connected by what? Comma. So this is one definition only. As used by the auditor to consider different types of potential misstatements that may occur, है ना. तो यहाँ पर हमने क्या समझा कि ऑडिटर मैनेजमेंट क्या बता रहा है कि प्लांट एंड मशीनरी वैल्यू एट 2 crores है. तो यहां पर हमने क्या अज्यूम किया, दैट मैनेजमेंट ये कहना चाह रहा है कि ये बिल्डिंग एक्चुअली एग्जिस्ट करती है. इम्प्लाइड, ऑब्वियस. ये जो बिल्डिंग 2 crores की है ना, दिस इज व्हाट कंप्लीट. ये जो बिल्डिंग है, सॉरी प्लांट एंड मशीनरी, चलो आप बिल्डिंग ले लो. ये जो प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है, बिल्डिंग है, सो दिस इज व्हाट द कंपनी इज हैविंग द राइट ओवर सच एसेट, है ना. अब यहां पर सेकंड में हम क्या देखेंगे, द सेकंड पार्ट ऑफ दिस डेफिनेशन. अब ये जो जस्ट अ मिनट, ये जो हमने कहा ना कि दिस इज व्हाट इम्प्लाइड या whatever assertions are given, now auditor is going to check such assertions only. अब यहां पर ऑडिटर चेक करेगा ना कि अच्छा देखना है ये एग्जिस्ट करती है, अच्छा देखना है ये कंप्लीट है, अच्छा देखना है एक्चुअल में राइट है या नहीं. लेट्स से वैल्यूएशन assertion की, अच्छा वैल्यूएशन ठीक है या नहीं. सो एज यूज्ड बाय द ऑडिटर to consider different types of potential misstatements. Potential, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि valuation is not correct. ऐसा तो नहीं है कि that the company is not having the right over such asset. That may occur. समझ आता है assertion की definition? I've repeated it again. Why? Because many of you have asked me to repeat it, है ना? So there is a relationship of assertion with the management and auditor. Since management is responsible for preparation and presentation of financial statement, तो management ही तो information देगा ना. So that is why representations by management, explicit or otherwise, that are embodied in the financial statement, as used by the auditor to consider different types of potential misstatement that may occur. Clear? तो जो management ने information declare किया, अब auditor उसी information को use करेगा ना. In इसी 2 crore के ऊपर auditor is going to perform the audit procedures in order to see whether the assertions, whether expressed or implied, existence, completeness, rights, obligations, valuations, सच में ठीक है या नहीं. तभी तो conclude करेंगे ना with respect to particular item of financial statement. Here the item is what? Plant and machinery.
Recording
now,
in progress.
Let's say the client, the management is saying that, or let's say the plant and machinery at value of 5 crore is given in the balance sheet. ठीक है. Now tell me, assertion का concept clear है ना, है ना. Tell me what all will you assume, है ना. अब आपको ये 5 CR लिखा हुआ दिख रहा है, आपको ये plant and machinery लिखा दिख रहा है. I need your answers. Tell me what all are you going to assume? Quickly, I need answers, students. Students, I need answers. I'm waiting for your reply. What all you are going to assume? So you will assume that this plant and machinery, it actually exists. Let's say this is financial year 2021-22. So you will assume that it actually exists as on 31st March 2022, right? Yes. Pranav is saying that this belongs to the entity, that the company is having a right over such plant and machinery, है ना? ठीक है? Then screen is not clear. Let me just zoom it. I hope it is clear now. ठीक है? Then you can also assume that the valuation is as per applicable financial reporting framework, the accounting standard, right? And you can also assume what? That all plant and machinery that was supposed to be included in this figure of 5 CR that has been done, है ना? अब इन्हीं सब exertions को ही तो चेक करेंगे ना, मैनेजमेंट ने यही सब exert किया, whether explicit or otherwise implied, है ना? Now auditor is going to check all these assertions, ठीक है? So this is what it actually exists. We will see that this is called what? Existence assertion. The company is having right over such plant and machinery. This is what? Rights assertion. The valuation is as per applicable financial reporting framework. This is what? Valuation assertion. Let's say, let's have one more, that the machinery that has been disclosed is properly disclosed as required by the applicable financial reporting framework. So all plant and machinery is there. This is what? Completeness assertion. And the disclosure is correct. This is what? Presentation and disclosure assertion. ठीक है? Now students, I told you that this concept of assertion ना, अब समझ आ गया ना assertion क्या है? ये simplify कर देता है audit process को. कैसे? देखो. Now take a situation where I ask you that audit the figure of plant and machinery, which is 5 CR. Vis-a-vis the second situation. So this is what? My first case. ठीक है? The second situation whereby I ask you to verify the existence assertion. अब देखो, जैसे ही मैंने आपको बोला existence assertion of plant and machinery को चेक करना है, ठीक है? What you will do, you may inspect, है ना? You will what? You will inspect कि ये building actually exist करती है या नहीं. Inspection includes what? Go back to your chapter number 3, physical examination of asset, है ना? Quickly audit procedure समझ आ गया ना क्या करना है? Vis-a-vis situation whereby I am telling you कि verify this figure of 5 CR. So it simplifies ना. जहां पर I asked you to verify the rights with respect to this plant and machinery, आप quickly purchase invoice देखोगे ना, quickly, है ना? तो it is simplifying the audit process, है ना? कि ये वाला assertion check करना है तो ये करना पड़ेगा. Building का देखना है, let's say rights, building का देखना है. आप title deed उठाओगे ना, आप electricity bill उठाओगे ना, है ना? So it tells you, the concept of assertion tells you as to what audit procedure the auditor needs to perform. ठीक है? So yes, you all have written absolutely correctly that complete है या नहीं, valued correctly है या नहीं, existence है या नहीं. अब यही सब तो चेक करना है. तो let us just have a look. अब plant and machinery actually exist करती है नहीं, existence assertion देखनी है. I'll perform what? Inspection audit procedure. राइट है या नहीं, अगेन इंस्पेक्शन आएगा, बट किसका? डॉक्यूमेंट्स का. फॉर एग्जांपल द परचेज इनवॉइस, है ना? वैल्यूएशन प्रॉपर है या नहीं, तो आई अगेन व्हाट? आई मे रिकैलकुलेट व्हाट? डेप्रिसिएशन शेड्यूल. ऑल प्लांट एंड मशीनरी है या नहीं, इसमें you may have what depreciation schedule को आप देखो, right? You may obtain a written representation from the management, right? You may check all the purchase invoice. Disclosure appropriate is ना कि क्या audit procedure करना है, समझ आया? So now at the ground level, that is, if the auditor has to check this particular assertion with respect to this item of financial statement, तो क्या audit procedure करना है ना? और ये बहुत सिंपल है, क्यों? क्योंकि आपने चैप्टर नंबर 8 तक सब कुछ पढ़ा है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू ऑल दी स्टैंडर्ड्स जो दैट आर इन योर सिलेबस दैट द ऑडिटर नीड्स टू अप्लाई. You all have done, or you all will be covering up your standards, the accounting standards, है ना? तो applicable FRF में वही तो आ गया ना. Further, the presentation disclosure as per Schedule 3 to the Companies Act, तो आप ये कंपनी लॉ में पढ़ोगे या यहाँ पर भी हम डिटेल में डिस्कस करेंगे. Various provision of Companies Act की related party transaction को कैसे शो करना है, शेयर कैपिटल इशू है तो क्या करना है, all that you are going to study here also and in law also. So अब बस आपको यही तो बोलना है ना कि auditor needs to verify this document. Auditor needs to ensure whether this has been done. Auditor needs to check it, है ना? क्या चेक करना है, क्या वेरीफाई करना है, क्या कैलकुलेट करना है, रिकैलकुलेट करना है, रिपरफॉर्म करना है, सिंपली बेस्ड ऑन द आइटम्स ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. जो आइटम ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट इज कमिंग, उसका अकाउंटिंग का नॉलेज, उसका लॉ का नॉलेज, एंड देन योर ऑडिट के अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द स्टैंडर्ड्स. दैट्स इट, है ना? पर पढ़ना तो पड़ेगा एक बारी चैप्टर में है क्या, ठीक है? सो आई होप इट इज क्लियर, ठीक है? नाउ दीज assertions ना, these are divided basically into two categories, that is income statement captions, that is your revenue and expense item, and your balance sheet captions, that is assets, liabilities and equity balances, है ना? तो assertions का concept clear हो गया हमें, but let us now just try to understand that with respect to income and expense account and with respect to your balance sheet, what all are the assertions, है ना? अब देखो, बिल्डिंग के लिए तो यू विल से दैट दिस बिल्डिंग, वेदर दिस बिल्डिंग एग्जिस्ट एज ऑन 31st March 2022, पर क्या सैलरी बैलेंस के लिए भी एग्जिस्ट बोलोगे क्या, या सेल्स के लिए भी कि सेल्स एग्जिस्ट करता है? नहीं, उसके लिए क्या बोलोगे? सेल्स वेदर दिस हैज अकर्ड, सेल्स और परचेजेस वेदर दीज हैव अकर्ड ड्यूरिंग द ईयर, ठीक है? Because their nature is such that these are what the transactions that have happened during the year, and these are what, which are the balances that are appearing as on the period end, ठीक है? So that is why there is a little change, ठीक है, in the nomenclature. How to what is the query of Harini, that how to present the answers, पहले देखते हैं. अभी let us just try to make the foundation for this chapter strong. उसके बाद we will discuss as to what kind of questions you may get, है ना? एक दो टॉपिक करते हैं, after that we will discuss it. Items, the headings that appear in the income statement, your revenue, your expenses, है ना? Here your assets, liabilities, equity balances, ठीक है जश? ठीक है? Is it clear? Now, in order to understand the income statement items, let us take example of sales. Let's say 50 lakhs का sales is appearing in the P&L account income side, ठीक है? So just a minute. Just give me 1 minute. So students, see, this is what Schedule 3, है ना? I just wanted to discuss one thing with you. See, Schedule 3 gives you as to how to give the disclosure, है ना? These are what the regulatory requirements as to how to give the disclosure, है ना? So it is saying that, let me just see whether I'll be able to write on this one. So the equity and liabilities, it should appear like this, है ना? Or let us see here. So the fixed asset should appear like this, ठीक है? Or the balance sheet should appear like this, ठीक है? Now this is the format, just a minute, of the balance sheet. sorry, the P&L. So now auditor is going to check each and every item ना कि revenue from operations ठीक है या नहीं. Other income is whether it is appearing with respect to all the assertions with respect to revenue and from operations, है ना? Occurrence, measurement, completeness, and then only he'll be able to conclude with respect to this particular item or then this particular item and then for the P&L as a whole. ठीक है? Is it clear? Now, so let's take an example of sales. So when sales of rupees 50 lakhs are appearing in the P&L, so basically the assertions with respect to such sales of rupees, what was the amount? 50 lakhs are what? Occurrence, completeness, cutoff, measurement, presentation and disclosure. Now what is meant by all that? So when that amount of rupees 50 lakh is appearing, so this sales figure of 50 lakhs is telling the users of the financial statement that users of the financial statement, listen, such sales of rupees 50 lakhs have actually occurred during the year. It has actually occurred during the year and such sale relates to the entity. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये किसी director से related है. This relates to the entity. Let's say the company is what? A Limited in our case. So these sales have actually occurred during the year and these relate to the entity. तो ये क्या है? This is what? One of the assertions and auditor is going to perform the audit procedure to check such assertion. अब वो कैसे करना है हम item wise later on देखेंगे. So when the sales figure of 50 lakhs is given, so the second assertion that this figure is telling the users of the financial statement is that this 50 lakhs represent all sales that was supposed to be recorded as sales in the income side. All sales have been recorded, right? And nothing has been omitted. कुछ भी छूटा नहीं है. जितना sales आना चाहिए था during the year that has been included. All the keyword here is what? All sales have been included. अब यही assertion को check करना है कैसे? By performing various audit procedures. Cutoff. Cutoff is what? That whatever sales are appearing, this 50 lakhs ka amount now, this sales is reported in the correct period. If we have shown this in financial year 21-22, so this has actually taken place during this year. It is not the case that the sales with respect to next year are coming here. And it is also not the case that the sale with respect to financial year 21-22 are considered in the next year. Cut off word kahan se aaya hai? Dekho, cut off date 31st March jahan aapka end of year hai, that is the cut off date, है ना? तो cut off assertion says that let's say this is my financial year 21-22, ठीक है? Here the financial year 22-23 and here the financial year 2021, ठीक है? And my year under audit is what? 21-22, ठीक है? So cutoff date is what? Here, है ना? That the sales that are supposed to be considered in this year that has taken place here, it is not happening that these are considered in the next year or these have been considered earlier. जो 21-22 की sales है, that has been considered here in the financial year 21-22 only. That is where the incomes that have been reported, that is in the correct accounting period. अब ये कैसे check करना है? Again, auditor is going to perform what? Audit procedure in order to check this assertion. ठीक है? Now measurement, as the name suggests, that whatever, let's say this 50 lakhs का example, so these sales have been measured appropriately as per the applicable financial reporting framework. जो revenue recognition AS9 कहता है वैसे ही calculate किया है, right? Or let's say the discounts, various types of discounts have been appropriately, correctly calculated. Measurement is correct, है ना? यही तो assume करोगे ना, यही तो management is also implying, and यही तो check करना है. ठीक है. Presentation and disclosure, the way this sales is supposed to be presented and disclosed. Now let us have a look at schedule 3. Schedule 3 क्या कहता है? Revenue from operation को कैसे show करना है? Sales of products, sale of services, other operating, less this. Then this presentation is correct, right? The management has given this assertion. Auditor has to perform audit procedure in order to have comfort over this assertion. है ना. ऑडिटर इन्हीं assertions को तो चेक करके ऑडिटर इज गोइंग टू गिव हिज ओपिनियन दैट फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट एज अ होल रिप्रेजेंट व्हाट ट्रू एंड फेयर व्यू. सो ऑकरेंस, completeness, cut off, measurement and presentation and disclosure, OCCMP, correct with respect to what? Income statement items. Clear? Now, with respect to the balance sheet items, I told you that there will be a certain difference of what nomenclature. अब आप ये तो नहीं बोलोगे ना कि बिल्डिंग जो है as on 31st March अक्कर किया है, या प्लांट एंड मशीनरी अक्कर्ड as on 31st March. You will say it exists. बिल्डिंग एग्जिस्ट करती है, प्लांट एंड मशीनरी एग्जिस्ट करती है. ऐसा कौन एजर्ट कर रहा है? मैनेजमेंट. ऐसा कौन चेक करेगा? ऑडिटर. कैसे? बाय परफॉर्मिंग ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स. एज सिंपल एज दैट. ठीक है. सो दैट द एसेट्स एंड लायबिलिटीज दे एक्चुअली एग्जिस्ट. अगर क्रेडिटर्स आ रहे हैं 50 लाख के, तो ये एक्चुअली एग्जिस्ट करते हैं. ये एक्चुअली कंपनी को बिलोंग, दे एक्चुअली एग्जिस्ट एज ऑन 31st March 2022. क्लियर? कंप्लीटनेस, इफ बिल्डिंग और लेट्स से प्लांट एंड मशीनरी वाले एग्जांपल कंटिन्यू करते हैं, 5 CR है ना, तो दिस इंक्लूड्स ऑल बिल्डिंग. ऐसा नहीं है कि कोई भी this includes all plant and machinery. ऐसा नहीं है that कोई भी plant and machinery has been omitted, right? So auditor will check that only. Cut off, the assets liability are shown in the correct accounting period. Clear? Valuation is as per what? The applicable financial reporting framework. अगर plant and machinery 5 CR पे आ रहा है, मतलब depreciation ठीक आया है ना. ऑडिटर को यही एजॉर्शन चेक करना है. कैसे? लेट्स से बाय रिकैलकुलेटिंग, बाय इंस्पेक्टिंग द शेड्यूल ऑफ डेप्रिसिएशन, राइट? राइट्स एंड ऑब्लिगेशन, राइट्स विद रिस्पेक्ट टू एसेट्स, ऑब्लिगेशंस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू व्हाट? योर लायबिलिटीज. सो ये जो let's say there is what? Cash. So the company has a right over such cash. Such cash is free to the company for use, है ना. And last but not the least is what? Presentation. Presentation and disclosure as is required. Students will be discussing in detail with respect to presentation disclosure of share capital, reserve surplus, the borrowings, the creditors, है ना. तो वो वैसे ही हुआ है. ये तो मैनेजमेंट का एजर्शन था, वो वैसे ही हुआ है. नहीं, कौन चेक करेगा? ऑडिटर. कैसे चेक करेगा? बाय परफॉर्मिंग ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स. व्हाट ऑल ऑडिट प्रोसीजर्स? that is what is contained in this chapter. कि particular item of financial statement पे कैसे audit procedures apply करने हैं, what all audit procedures are to be performed. और क्यों करने हैं अब आपको पता है, because unless and until एक assertion के बारे में auditor is sure, he cannot give his opinion on the financial statement as a whole. ठीक है. तो हमने क्या पढ़ा कि हमने वहां पर क्या पढ़ा? With respect to the P&L or the income statement, है ना. So occurrence, completeness, cut off, measurement, presentation and disclosure assertions. कौन देता है? मैनेजमेंट. कौन चेक करेगा? ऑडिटर. कैसे चेक करेगा? हम पढ़ेंगे. क्लियर? With respect to your balance sheet item, the corresponding with respect to occurrence is what? Existence, completeness, कट ऑफ, वैल्यूएशन. आप बिल्डिंग को वैल्यू करोगे ना, ये तो नहीं बोलोगे ना बिल्डिंग इज मेजर्ड, है ना. प्रेजेंटेशन डिस्क्लोजर एंड राइट्स एंड ऑब्लिगेशंस. ठीक है. नाउ आई नीड रिप्लाईज फ्रॉम ऑल ऑफ यू. एजर्शंस टॉपिक क्लियर है? कोई डाउट है? रहना नहीं चाहिए डाउट. बाय? बिकॉज वी हैव discuss this topic quite in detail. Still there is any doubt, you can always send in your queries. I'll definitely resolve them. Assertion topic क्यों clear होना चाहिए? Because आगे in this chapter you will see that whenever we are studying, let's say with respect to share capital. Share capital is what? One of the items of financial statement. बैलेंस शीट में आता है ना. इससे रिलेटेड बहुत सारी assertions है ना. Existence, valuation, rights, obligations, like बहुत सारी assertions हैं. We are going to check each of these assertions. है ना, ये सारी assertion हम चेक करेंगे. ठीक है. So जज, ज्योति, आलोक, ज्ञानेश, अमन, होजेमा, all are saying ma'am it is clear. Dhyanesh, Alok, ठीक है. Others also please reply. ठीक है. Now the first assertion, the first item of financial statement that we are going to check is what? Share capital. है ना. Share capital क्या होता है? Section बताना कोई relevant मुझे. So Pritika is saying ma'am it is crystal clear. Sankaran is saying ma'am it is understood. Harini is saying ma'am clear. Priyanka is also saying ma'am clear. So that's good. Now tell me share capital के बारे में आपको क्या पता है? What are the terms? है ना, relevant terms बताओ share capital से. I told you बहुत easy chapter है, but yes सुनना तो पड़ेगा, module भी read करना पड़ेगा, थोड़ा सा समझना तो पड़ेगा. ठीक है. शेयर कैपिटल क्या, कुछ टर्म्स बताओ जो इससे रिलेटेड है ना. अब नाउ यू हैव टू ऑडिट द वन ऑफ द आइटम ऑफ फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. ऑडिट व्हाट? शेयर कैपिटल. अब देखो एक सिंपल सा अभी हम, हाँ ठीक है, ऑथराइज कैपिटल, आयुषी यू आर करेक्ट. मतलब क्या? द मैक्सिमम अमाउंट ऑफ कैपिटल दैट कैन बी इशूड. और ऑथराइजेशन कहां से होती है? विच डॉक्यूमेंट विल यू चेक? इफ आई आस्क यू टू वेरीफाई अबाउट ऑथराइज्ड कैपिटल, टेल मी द फर्स्ट डॉक्यूमेंट दैट कम्स टू योर माइंड. स्टूडेंट्स टेल मी. तो मेमोरेंडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन चेक करोगे ना, राइट? Absolutely correct. Jyoti and Dhyanesh. And earlier I asked you ki tell me various terms related to share capital. So many of you are saying equity shares, preference shares, authorized share capital, issued share capital, money collected, return of equity. Absolutely correct. ठीक है. तो अब जब ये सब पता है ना, अब आगे एक और आंसर दो. If I ask you कि verify the existence, completeness and valuation of share capital. ठीक है. पहला डॉक्यूमेंट क्या माइंड में आता है अगर आपको शेयर कैपिटल को चेक करना है? चलो assertions भूल जाओ. अगर आपको let's say the item that I am asking you to verify is what is share capital. Tell me what is the first document that comes to your mind? During the year share capital issue हुआ है या नहीं, मैंने नहीं बताया आपको. आप कैसे देखोगे कि शेयर कैपिटल ड्यूरिंग द ईयर आया है या नहीं? बताओ कौन सा डॉक्यूमेंट को आप इंस्पेक्ट करोगे? बहुत सिंपल है. प्लीज सेंड इन योर रिप्लाईज. शेयर कैपिटल का मूवमेंट मेरे को चेक करना है लास्ट ईयर से दिस ईयर तक. बताओ कहां से चेक होगा? I'll wait for your replies, then I'll move further. So what is my query? I've asked you. जब हम बहुत टेक्निकल सोचते हैं ना तो हम बहुत इजी चीज भूल जाते हैं. हाँ, एक आलोक हैज आंसर्ड इट करेक्टली. द बेसिक डॉक्यूमेंट है ना, so that is what your balance sheet है ना. So you can always tally the amount of capital that is appearing in your financial statements for the year under audit and the closing of the last year, which has become what? Opening of the year under audit. आपने वो देखा? You can see whether there is a movement or not. ठीक है. And if there is a movement, that is there has been an issue of share capital during the year. Now the next question that comes to your mind is that whether it is within the limits, that is whether it is within the limits that has been specified by memorandum of association, that is what? Within what? The limit of authorized capital. वो कैसे चेक करेगा होगा? बैलेंस शीट तो है ही, मेमोरेंडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन भी हम चेक कर सकते हैं, ठीक है। नाउ इफ देयर इज नो चेंज ड्यूरिंग द ईयर, देयर इज नो इशू ऑफ कैपिटल, तो उसके लिए कोई ऑडिट एविडेंस ऑब्टेन कर सकते हैं? क्विकली टेल मी। अब देखो, अब आपकी सारी अंडरस्टैंडिंग जो आपने चैप्टर नंबर 8 तक अप्लाई की थी, है ना, जस्ट कीप इन माइंड कि व्हाट are all standards that you have done so far, standards and auditing, what are audit procedures are there, वो ही सब अप्लाई होंगे। अब मैंने आपको क्या बोला, हम शेयर कैपिटल को वेरीफाई करने जा रहे हैं। अभी आई एम नॉट आस्क्ड यू एज टू विच एजर्शन, है ना। तो हमने कहा कि बैलेंस शीट से टैली कर लेंगे पहले, दैट लास्ट ईयर का बैलेंस कितना है, इस ईयर का बैलेंस कितना है। इफ देयर इज अ मूवमेंट तो वो भी चेक कर लेंगे मेमोरेंडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन से, दैट वो विद इन द लिमिट्स है या नहीं। अभी इसमें और भी कुछ चेक करेंगे, बट बिफोर दैट आई हैव आस्क्ड यू एज टू इफ देयर इज नो चेंज इन द शेयर कैपिटल, तो उसको उसके लिए व्हाट ऑडिट डॉक्यूमेंट, व्हाट ऑडिट एविडेंस यू कैन हैव। ऐसे 500 सीरीज में आपने कुछ पढ़ा है, देयर इज वन ऐसे, सेंड इन योर रिप्लाईज। यस आयुष यू आर करेक्ट कि मेमोरेंडम ऑफ एसोसिएशन के साथ रेजोल्यूशंस भी पढ़ेंगे, बट नाउ आंसर टू माय दिस क्वेरी, इफ देयर इज नो चेंज, है ना, तो मैनेजमेंट से क्या ले सकते हैं हम? We may ask for what? Written representation. We may ask the company secretary to provide a written representation कि भाई लिख के दे दो that there has been no change of the share capital. Simple है ना, लॉजिकल है ना। देखो बहुत सिंपल चैप्टर है, बहुत लॉजिकल है, बट एक बारी with concentration you will have to listen to these sessions. For once or twice you will have to go through the module, and I assure you that your chapter will be done then and there only. Keep on summarizing whatever is given, and for your convenience I have summarized, like देखो ऐसे summary बनानी है ना। So many of you keep me asking कि ma'am how to summarize. So in this chapter ample of space is given, है ना, left side पे बहुत सारा space है ना, तो use that. Summarize in your own language. I'll not say copy it from here. If you find it comfortable to use these summaries, you may use that. If you find it comfortable in your own language, you may do that. ठीक है, बहुत बड़ा चैप्टर है, बहुत इजी है, समराइज करते जाओ, ठीक है। सो ऑडिटर विल कंपेयर व्हाट पीरियड एंड बैलेंस ऑफ शेयर कैपिटल विद द बैलेंस अपीयरिंग इन प्रीवियस ईयर। If there is no change, obtain what? Representation or confirmation from. So I'll write here confirmation. ठीक है, from whom? From the company secretary of the company. If there is a change, you need to check whether it is within the limits of authorized capital. How? By inspecting memorandum of association. ठीक है. Also check what resolutions which the board of directors or the shareholders have passed. They must have passed the resolution with respect to increase, decrease in the authorized capital or the fresh issue of shares. Then auditor needs to consider the copies of such resolution. ठीक है. Now I told you that आपको क्या माइंड में लेके आना है कि शेयर कैपिटल से रिलेटेड what all is the accounting rules and regulations that you need to follow, है ना. What all are the requirements of the Companies Act 2013? कोई disclosure requirements है, बस यही सब माइंड में लाना है, और उसको आपको in terms of auditor that you need to verify that, you need to verify that. Now, in case of fresh issue of capital, auditor will consider various provision of Companies Act, like whether return of allotment has been filed, whether the requirements of minimum subscription has been met, whether minimum application money has been received, whether the amount of fresh issue has been kept in separate account, है ना, whether the underwriting commission has been paid, what is the relevant section, section 14 of the Companies Act 2013. So whether that has been paid as per section 40 of the Companies Act, है ना. तो यही सब इंफॉर्मेशन तो मैनेजमेंट ने ये ठीक से किया है या नहीं, यही तो आपको देखना है ना. सो कंपनीज एक्ट के जो भी रेलेवेंट रिक्वायरमेंट्स है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू फ्रेश इशू, मैनेजमेंट मस्ट हैव डन दैट. मैनेजमेंट ने तो यही आपको एजर्शन दिया ना, यू विल चेक दैट. ठीक है. सो ऑडिटर विल व्हाट, ही विल इंस्पेक्ट that okay, provide me with return of allotment. ठीक है. give me the details of the separate bank account that has been opened. ठीक है, give me the details of how the underwriting commission has been paid, है ना, give me the prospectus whereby with respect to underwriting commission it has been mentioned, है ना, give me all those details. Auditor will ask the management to provide and then auditor will check them. ठीक है. Now students, the shares cannot be issued at discount, and the shares issued at a discount are void, and this is given in section 53, though there are certain exceptions which we will be doing after the break. ठीक है, अभी we are not taking a break, but this topic I'll be taking up after the break. So auditor needs to consider as to whether, ऐसा तो नहीं है that shares discount पे issue हो गए हैं. Why? Because if the shares are issued at discount except for 2 cases, then such issue of share is what? Void, है ना. So auditor will also see whether the shares are issued for cash or for consideration other than cash, or for consideration other than cash. For example, the shares are issued to promoters or underwriters for consideration other than cash. Auditor will consider that, है ना. Further, if the shares are listed, then whether the SEBI regulations, the guidelines have been met or not, right? Students, you also must be aware that with respect to the increase in authorized capital or increase in paid up share capital, the company needs to file certain forms with the MCA. So whether form SF7 has been filed with the MCA with respect to increase in authorized capital, whether form PS3 with respect to increase in paid up share capital has been filed with the MCA, and this third form is to be filed with what? It is to be filed with RBI. So the form FCGPR, so when there is foreign direct investment by any non-resident shareholder, then such form is to be filed with the with the RBI. So auditor will consider that. So what is this? This is I'm just telling you for your reference, foreign currency gross provisional return, है ना. So whether that has been filed or not, तो वो कैसे check करेंगे? Auditor will ask the management to provide such document, है ना. Auditor will see whether it is correct or not. Yes, absolutely correct, Dhyanish. One of the exception to section 53 is what? Sweat equity shares. वो भी हम discuss करेंगे detail में. ठीक है, simple है. Further, auditor will also verify what are the number of securities issued and what is the issue price. And students, you all must be aware that when any increase in authorized capital is there, the fees, the stamp duty with respect to all the forms is to be filled, the stamp duty, the fees is to be paid to what? MCA. So whether that has been done or not, है ना. Simple है, बहुत logical है ना. So let us have a look at this from the module. So we have done all these in detail. See, देखो हमने क्या पढ़ा अभी तक. That financial statement accounting standard के according पढ़े जाते हैं and financial बनाए जाते हैं. Financial statement audit comprises examination of entities, financial statement and the accompanying disclosures. ठीक है. कौन से assertions हैं? This example beautifully explains. Please read it as a homework. Though we have done it, we have discussed it, but बहुत अच्छे से समझाया है the concept of assertion. So income statement में क्या है? Occurrence, cut off completeness, your measurement, presentation and disclosure. देखो बहुत these two tables ना, these are very very important. By देखो यहाँ पर इसको कैसे explain किया है कि what is meant by this assertion, and then the same is explained with the help of 2 examples. So occurrence का क्या मतलब है? That the transaction recognized in the financial statement have occurred and relate to the entity. अब इसको employee benefit expense और sales के accordingly example has been given, which beautifully explains this concept. So please read it as a homework. Completeness क्या है? All transactions that were supposed to be recorded have been recognized. That is, transaction have not been omitted. So here we are talking about the transactions now. So these have not been omitted. Cut off का क्या मतलब है? Whether all income and expenses are reporting in the correct accounting period. ठीक है. Measurement. Transaction have been accurately recorded at their appropriate amounts in the financial statement. There are no errors in preparing financial statement. The figures and explanation are not misstated. अब इसी को explain किया है with the help of the example. You can You should study it as a homework. Presentation and disclosure. Transactions have been classified, presented fairly in the financial statement. The transactions and events are segregated. जैसे हमने देखा ना अभी revenue from operations like this, that it should be shown like this. So that has been done. The presentation and disclosure is what? It is complete and accurate. So auditor needs to consider all these. Same way with respect to the balance sheet items. Clear? And here the inventory balance has been considered as what? One of the example which beautifully explains. देखो जैसे यहाँ पर था ना completeness, that all inventory has been considered. So there is a point, let me just discuss it here only, that all inventories held by the entity should have been recorded and recognized appropriately in the financial statement. Now, if the entity is having any inventory, let's say for job work purpose, and that inventory belongs to a third party, so that shall not be considered in A Limited's inventory. Same way, if any inventory of A Limited is kept, let's say, with some warehouse or for job work, so then that should be considered. So all inventory that was supposed to be recorded should have been recognized. So all inventories held by the entity that should have been recorded have been recognized. Any inventory held by a third party on behalf of the entity has been included as a part of the inventory balance. Inventory held by entity as a consignee shall be excluded. अगर कंपनी ने कोई इन्वेंट्री थर्ड पार्टी के बिहाफ पर होल्ड की है तो दैट इज नॉट द इन्वेंट्री ऑफ द कंपनी ना. सेम वे अगर कंपनी की कोई इन्वेंट्री थर्ड पार्टी ने हेल्ड की है, फॉर एग्जांपल फॉर जॉब वर्क, दैट शुड बी इंक्लूडेड. Cut off, you can see that all liabilities are reported in appropriate period, valuation, and then rights, obligation, presentation, disclosure. ठीक है. So we have started with share capital. So we were discussing what the various audit procedures. तो कौन कौन से assertions हम check कर रहे हैं? Existence, completeness, and valuation. ठीक है. तो एक बारी before starting from the module, I want your replies. समझ आ रहा है? Is there any doubt? Is the speed and everything fine with you all? रिस्क असेसमेंट क्या होता है हरिणी? यू मस्ट हैव डन चैप्टर नंबर 4, है ना. चैप्टर नंबर 4 का आप वीडियोस देखो, है ना. दैट चैप्टर explains in detail with respect to risk assessment and internal control. ठीक है. So existence, completeness, and valuation. So what was the first step? So many of you are saying, ma'am, speed is fine, no doubt, everything is clear, no doubt, clarity now. Chalo, good. So tally the period and share capital balance of authorized, issued, paid up to previous year audited financial statement. Last year का तो audited होगा ना. So consider that. अब देखो मैंने उसको summarize कैसे किया था. ठीक है. अब obviously you cannot make this in your exam. But हाँ, this is what one of the learning techniques. You can just make summaries. यहाँ पर आप easily summarize कर सकते हो ना. Ample space is given in this chapter, and I'll suggest you why. Because this is a lengthy chapter, है ना. कितना बहुत ज़्यादा pages है, 114, है ना. So it is better that you summarize in your own language, that you find it easy to understand also and to revise also. ठीक है. So let me just have a look at the doubt. ठीक है. Just your doubt will be clear. Let us just have a look at these procedures from the module first. ठीक है. उसके बाद भी आपका ये डाउट रहता है, then please send in your query again. So अब share capital का existence, completeness and valuation check करना है. So what all audit procedures the auditor will perform? So he'll tally the period and share capital balance to the of authorized, issued, paid up capital to the previous year audited financial statement. ठीक है. In case there is no change, obtain written confirmation from the company secretary. In case of any change, first of all, verify whether that is within the limits of authorized capital. For that, verify what? Memorandum of association. During the year, if there has been any fresh issue, then certified copies of relevant resolutions of meetings of board of directors या shareholders. Auditor will verify that. So see, these are the words: obtain, है ना, verify, और क्या था? Tally. ठीक है. again obtain, है ना? In case of fresh issue, check the compliance with Companies Act 2013 with respect to return of allotment, minimum subscription, minimum application money, separate bank account, underwriting commission. No shares should have been issued at discount. Check if shares are issued for cash or for consideration other than cash. Consideration other than cash आप किसको issue कर सकते हो? Promoters को, underwriters को. Consider whether the provisions of Companies Act have been complied with or not. Compliance with SEBI regulations and guidelines. Various forms that are to be filled with the MCA. SS7 for increase in authorized capital. PS3 for increase in paid up share capital. And with RBI for what? The form FCGPR in case of foreign direct investment with non-resident shareholder. And verify when you are looking at these forms, also verify what number of securities and the issue price. And in case there was increase in the share capital, then whether the stamp duty and fees which is payable to MCA, whether that has been appropriately calculated and paid or not. Clear? Simple hai? ठीक है? Now there is another topic with respect to share capital, which is what? Shares issued at a premium. Quickly tell me without looking at the module, what is the relevant section of the Companies Act? Yes, Aman, it is Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It is also mentioned here. So all the documents with respect to the companies are filed here. So auditor needs to consider that. Aman, yes, you are correct. Alok, you are correct. We will discuss this topic later on as and when it will come. So what is meant by the premium amount? What is meant by shares issued at premium? Quickly, I need answers because I know all of you have an understanding of it from your law subject and from your accounts also. Though we will be touching upon each of the topic in order to just revise and to recall as to what is contained in this topic. So Yatiraj, it is the commission. The underwriting commission is what? It is the commission that is paid to the underwriters. ठीक है? ठीक है? Is it clear? So Aman, Gomathi, Dhyanesh, Piyush, Priyanka, all are absolutely correct. Pranav is also correct. That's section 52. So what is premium amount? So when, let's say, the nominal value is 10 of the share is 10 and it is issued at a price of, issue price is what? 15. So this 5 rupees is what? The premium amount. So the amount in excess of nominal value. So you may get a question now for all those who were asking me as to ma'am, what kind of question we can get? So you may get a direct question that you are the auditor of ABC Limited. While perusing the documents, the balance sheet, you found out that during the year, there has been an issue of share capital at a premium. Verify such issue of capital. अब वहां पर तो आप ये सब नहीं लिखोगे ना, ठीक है? वहां पर तो specifically with respect to shares issued at a premium you will have to write, है ना? हाँ, you can always write that auditor will consider what? The movement of share capital, है ना? If shares have been issued, he will consider whether it is within the authorized limit by checking what? By verifying memorandum of association, resolutions भी check करना है, ठीक है? Then premium, with respect to shares issued at a premium, what are the specific requirements you need to mention that? ठीक है? So premium amount क्या होता है? This you have understood, ठीक है? Now section 52 says that when the shares are issued, see there is no restriction on the company. The company can issue the shares at a premium. जैसे we have done ना that discount पे तो the company cannot issue except for 1 or 2 cases, है ना? Section 53. But abhi we are discussing what? Shares issued at a premium. So first of all, there is no restriction as per the Companies Act. But yes, section 52 of the Companies Act says that when the shares are issued by a company at a premium, then such premium amount should be transferred to a separate security premium account. And it should specify as to for what purpose that amount can be utilized. There are certain purposes given by section 52 and for those purposes only such amount of securities premium can be utilized. So if, see, these are the provisions contained in section 52 of the Companies Act. Management is asserting that we have complied with it. Auditor will check whether the same has been complied with or not. Simple. So what are those provisions? So section 52 says that the auditor, the company needs to transfer. So students, please refresh your page. If you are finding any problem in video, please, Alok, please refresh your page. So the company needs to transfer the amount received as premium to securities premium account and state the purpose for which it can be applied. है ना? So it is, see, securities premium जो आपका है, tell me whether it is a revenue reserve or capital reserve. Tell me. You tell me, quickly send in your replies whether it is a revenue reserve or capital reserve. So it is an example of what? Capital reserve. It cannot be used for distribution as dividend. So can be applied only for certain specific purposes which are given where in section 52. Okay? So what all purposes are there? So let us have a look at it from the module. Okay? So the application for the following purposes. So it is a capital reserve. Murtaza, Jash, Khojima, Alok, Varsha, Yatiraj, Parth, Sarthi, Dhyanesh, Piyush, Gomati, Aman, absolutely correct. Pranav, Kaship, absolutely correct. Anish, correct. Okay? So with respect to the following purposes it can be used, that is towards issue of unissued shares by way of what? The fully paid up bonus shares. In writing of preliminary expenses of the company. In writing of expenses with respect to commission paid or discount on issue of shares or debentures of the company. Students, I'm assuming that you all are well versed with all these terms. Hana? In providing for the premium payable in redemption of any redeemable preference shares or debentures. And for the purchase of a note share, that is buyback as per section 68 of the Companies Act. है ना? तो इन्हीं purposes के लिए use हो सकता है. If such amount is utilized for any other purpose, like apart from the purposes which are mentioned here, then the provisions of this act relating to reduction of share capital will apply. So it will be assumed how the provisions of this act will apply. The provisions of the act given in section 66 of the Companies Act with respect to reduction of share capital will apply if the amount of securities premium is utilized for a purpose other than the purposes which are specified here. Ab section 66 kya hai? Ye, that we'll be discussing later on. Okay? So what will auditor verify? He will verify whether the premium received on shares have been transferred to the securities premium account and whether the application of any amount of the said securities premium account is only for the purposes mentioned above. है ना? Simple है ना? So if you get a question specifically with respect to securities premium, तो यही तो लिखोगे ना, है ना? And further, as I've told you कि ये भी लिख सकते हो कि memorandum of association के limit में है नहीं, resolutions भी study कर सकते हैं, depending upon कितना marks का आपका and depending upon the availability of the time. Otherwise, the specific answer that you need to mention is this. ठीक है? Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes, Dhyanesh, that is given in detail in your law subject. That is why I'm not taking up it here in detail. Hana? So I told you that I'm discussing these topics, assuming that all these knowledge of accounting standards, your Companies Act, you all have already had. And for all those who have not started with the law subject, the classes you may, whenever you will be starting with those classes, you will be able to understand that. So Alok is saying, ma'am, it is clear. Aman, Ayushi, Pranav, Jyoti, Dhyanesh, Pritika, and Priyanka. So the next topic is what? Shares at a discount, है ना? So I'll do one thing before starting with this topic. Let us take a quick break of 10 minutes. And after the break, we will start with the next topic, which is what shares issued at a discount. So students, be back after the break of 10 minutes. So students, I hope you all are back after the break. I can see Jyoti is saying, ma'am, full corporate law is being used here. Yes. And later on, you'll see that your knowledge of accounting standards, Companies Act, everything will be used in this chapter. Okay? So very easy chapter, but yes, थोड़ा समझना पड़ेगा, read करना पड़ेगा, summaries बनानी पड़ेंगी, and then this chapter is going to be very easy for you. And this chapter, I have already told you that it, from the last 4-5 attempts, it has been coming from ranging from 10 to 20 marks, है ना? Like including the options and everything. So a very important chapter. Now we'll be starting with what shares issued at a discount. So tell me the relevant section with respect to shares issued at a discount. Send in your replies. So it is section 53. Hana? So as such, any company cannot issue the shares at a discount. So the shares, if the company issues shares at a discount, that such issue of shares is what? Void, right? However, there are two exceptions that we'll be discussing just now. What are these exceptions? So first of all, see, auditor will check what? That he will check the movement in share capital, and he'll verify as to whether the issue, if there has been any issue of share capital, then whether it is a discount or not. How? By inspecting the minutes of the meetings. Hana? We have done it earlier on that auditor will verify the certified copies of the resolutions passed at what? The shareholder meeting or the board of directors meeting. So he will read that. He will also read the minutes of the meeting. Okay? Now, the company cannot issue shares at a discount except when the company is issuing what? Sweat equity shares in terms of section 54 of the Companies Act. What are sweat equity shares? We will do it as a next topic. So sweat equity shares are issued to the employees or directors at a discount, or for consideration other than cash. So in such situations, shares can be issued at discount. So this is one of the exceptions also. In case of any debt restructuring scheme, right? If the debt is to be converted into the shares as per the guidelines of RBI, in such situation, the company may issue the shares at a discount to the creditors. तो creditors कौन हुए यहाँ पर? Bankers ही तो हुए ना, है ना? So in case of debt restructuring scheme, if it is being taken place as per the guidelines of the RBI and the debt is to be converted into shares, then the company may issue shares at a discount to the creditors. Okay? So auditor will verify whether shares are issued at a discount, and if yes, then either these should be what? Section 54 sweat equity shares, or these should be issued at a discount to the creditors as per what? The debt restructuring scheme. Clear? Now, what in case the company fails to comply with the provisions of section 53? That is, it issues the shares at discount, and these two are not the situations. So in that case, the company and the officer, every officer in default, shall be liable to pay a penalty which may extend up to the amount raised by such share, issue of share, or rupees 5 lakhs, whichever is less. Okay? Also, the company will have to refund all such monies. Why? Because such issue is what? Void, but along with interest at the rate of 12% per annum from the date of the issue of such shares. So in case, see, if auditor finds that there is a movement in share capital and it verifies from the minutes of the meetings, from the resolution, that the shares are issued at a discount, right? And these two are not the situations. 54 bhi nahi hai, debt restructuring bhi nahi hai. Then what are the further audit procedure? He'll see whether in such a situation, such penalty has been paid or not, and whether the company has refunded all the monies along with the interest at the rate of 12% per annum. Okay? So According to Section 53 of the Companies Act, the company shall not issue shares at a discount except the issue of sweat equity shares as per Section 54. Any share issued at a discounted price shall be what? Void. Notwithstanding anything contained in subsection 1 and 2 here, a company may issue shares at a discount to its creditors when its debt is converted into shares in pursuance of any statutory resolution plan or debt restructuring scheme in accordance with any guidelines or directions of RBI. In such a situation also, the shares may be issued at a discount. Where the company fails to comply, in such a situation, such company and every officer who is in default shall be liable to a penalty which may extend to an amount equal to amount raised through the issue of shares at a discount or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is less. And the company shall be liable to refund all monies received with interest at the rate of 12% per annum from the rate of such issue of shares to the persons to whom such shares have been issued. Auditor will check the movement of shares. He'll verify from the minutes of the meetings whether it is issued at a discount, and he'll see that if such shares have been issued out of debt restructuring scheme or to sweat or as sweat equity shares. Clear, simple है. तो जो भी आपका knowledge है of Companies Act, of your accounting standards, that only we are applying. है ना? So because management is asserting that only ना कि हमने कंपनीज एक्ट को फॉलो किया है, हमने अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स को फॉलो किया है, वो ही तो चेक करना है ना. क्लियर? Now next is what? Issue of sweat equity shares. Section 54 of the Companies Act. So see, as the name suggests, so such equity shares are issued to the employees or directors for their sweat, that is for their hard work that they do for the company, है ना, for their loyalty. So sweat equity shares mean equity shares issued by the company to employees or directors at a discount or for consideration other than cash for providing know-how or making available right in the nature of IPR, intellectual property right, or value additions by whatever name called. So in order to compensate for the hard work, for the loyalty, for let's say the employees or directors, they have made available certain IPRs or value additions have been done. Then the auditor will have to, such company may issue the shares to the such employees or directors as sweat equity shares, which is at a discount or for consideration other than cash. Okay? Now, in such a situation, so you may get a question that during the year, the company issued sweat equity shares. Now, auditor needs to verify that. Like you are so-and-so article and your engagement partner asks you to verify such issue of sweat equity shares. So what, now you all know that section 54 is applicable with respect to issue of sweat equity shares. So there are certain conditions that the company needs to comply. So whether that has been complied or not, auditor needs to verify that. Okay, is it clear? So the auditor needs to verify that the sweat equity shares issued by the company are of a class of shares which have already been issued. And the following conditions of section 54 will be applicable. So let me just take you through this summary, because many of you are saying that you find this summary helpful. Yes, Priyanka, sending your query. Okay. So issue of sweat equity shares. Hana? Section 54, and what is the meaning you all know? Auditor needs to verify that it should be a class of shares which has already been issued, and the sweat equity shares. See, you are giving shares at a discount or for consideration other than cash. So it should be approved by a special resolution, whereby such resolution should specify the number of shares, the current market price, like the market price prevailing, and the consideration at which it has been given to the directors and the employees, the class of employees or directors to whom it has been given. तो ऑडिटर शेल वेरीफाई कि स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन पास हुआ है ना और उसमें ये सब मेंशन है. Auditor will verify that in case such shares are listed on a stock exchange, the regulations of SEBI should be followed. In case of not listed shares, the rules as may be prescribed that needs to be followed. And such shares which are issued as sweat equity shares, Section 54 says that they shall have the same right they shall have the same restrictions as the other equity shareholders. Okay, so same rights, same limitations, same restrictions and provisions as applicable to the equity shareholder. That is the legal language is what? They shall rank pari passu with the equity shareholder. That is the same rights, same restrictions, same limitations of what? Of these sweat equity shares to with whom? With the equity shareholders. So auditor will see whether that has actually been complied with or not. Simple hai. Is it clear? Quickly send in your replies. And Priyanka, see if students, you are referring to the old module as Priyanka is saying. You might be having the hard copies of the old module, Hana. So with respect to that, please do not refer to section 53 from that module, because there has been a change. So you need to refer to the soft copies that are available on the BOS knowledge portal. Okay, Priyanka, I hope your query is now resolved. Okay, so students, please refer to the soft copies that are available on the BOS knowledge portal, because there are a number of changes in this chapter. Disclosure requirements ke changes are there, notes ke changes are there, and specifically with respect to this section 53 of the Companies Act, certain changes are there. So please check which book are you referring if you have the printed copies. Yes, Pranav, there are certain lock-in requirements, but we are not discussing that in detail, Hana. That is between the company and the employees, na? Batao, Pranav, is your doubt clear? That is between the company and the employees. ठीक है. So students, please check what module are you referring to. Please refer to the soft copies available on the BOS knowledge portal. Priyanka, please refer to that. ठीक है. So if any of you are having the older copies, older editions, then this chapter is very well available on the ICA website, na BOS knowledge portal. You can refer to that. ठीक है. Now I hope share capital, shares issued at a premium, discount, and sweat equity share is all clear to you. Now the next topic is what? Reduction of share capital. Tell me the relevant section number with respect to reduction of share capital. I'm waiting for your replies. Students, I need answer. Reduction of share capital. Students, please be careful. Which module are you referring to? Okay. So reduction of capital. So section 66 of the Companies Act 2013 contains the provision with respect to reduction of share capital. Hana? Further, there are certain like accounting entries will be passed with respect to the reduction of share capital. The mode of reduction of share capital will affect what? How the entries are passed. So auditor needs to consider all that. Then there are certain disclosure requirements, Hana? And National Company Law Tribunal का भी कुछ role होता है ना? Quickly tell me, are you all aware about that? Quickly send in your replies. So the order of NCLT. So we will talk about that also, Hana? When the capital is reduced, the word and reduced is used if it is mentioned in the order of NCLT. So whether that has been done or not, Hana? So various, like all such points will be discussing when we are verifying what? Reduction of capital. Okay? So what is the relevant section? It is section 66. So before understanding the audit procedures that the auditor needs to perform, let us just have a look as to what are the various modes of reduction of capital. So reduction of capital कैसे होगा? देखो, it might be possible that the company has surplus funds, है ना? तो company may give back the funds to the shareholders. Okay? And it might be possible that the company is making losses. And the company, there is what? The capital is not represented by the assets. So in that case, Also, the company may opt for reduction of capital. So I've told you that there can be three modes. First is what? Company has excess surplus funds. It want to return the funds which has already been given by the shareholders. So paying off the excess paid up capital. कि जो paid up capital and called and paid up, the company is returning it. Why? Because it is surplus. Clear? Reduction in unpaid capital, the capital which is uncalled as such, now the company is telling the shareholders कि हमें चाहिए भी नहीं, वो पैसा मत देना. ठीक है? So these two cases are what? जहां surplus funds हैं. Cancellation of lost capital, है ना? So a kind of internal reconstruction, है ना? So in case of loss-making companies, when the capital is not represented by assets, the company may go for what? Reduction of capital. And depending upon the mode of reduction of capital, there will be what? Accounting entries. है ना? So auditor will verify those accounting entries. Clear? ठीक है? Now see students, this reduction of capital, this is not an ordinary business. Na? So a special resolution will be required. Auditor will verify whether the special resolution has been passed and whether the meeting is properly convened and proper such proposal should be circularized in advance. है ना? In advance, the members are informed that the purpose is what? To reduce the share capital. So auditor will verify that. And the article of association of the company should authorize it to what? Opt for reduction of capital. So auditor needs to consider that. So auditor will what? Inspect such article of association. ठीक है? Further, students, reduction of capital cannot take place if there is what? Default in repayment of deposits. Why? Because एक तरफ तो the company is returning the money to the shareholders, है ना? Because surplus funds हैं. On the other hand, there is what? Default in repayment of interest or principal with respect to the deposits. So this should not happen. ठीक है? Further, the company will apply to whom? The National Company Law Tribunal. है ना? So when the order of such tribunal is received, along with the minutes of the meeting, such order and that minutes should be filed with the ROC. Thereafter, ROC will give what? A certificate. So auditor needs to check the registrar certificate. And I told you that depending upon the mode, the auditor needs to what? Verify the accounting entries will be dependent upon what kind of reduction of capital is there, what is the mode. So auditor needs to consider the accounting entries, right? Further, there are certain disclosure requirements as per Schedule 3, Part 1. When the capital is reduced, auditor needs to consider that. Also, when the reduction of capital takes place by way of cancellation of lost capital, है ना? There was, let's say, overvaluation of assets, है ना? So now when the company is opting for revaluation of assets, such revaluation should also be properly disclosed. ठीक है? Now you are paying off the excess capital, paid up capital. ठीक है? So in that case, adjustment should be made in the members register, है ना? अब या तो old shareholders हैं, उनके जो old certificates हैं, या तो आप उनको alter करोगे, or that will be cancelled and new certificates will be issued. Simple. If the order of NCLT requires, then the word and reduced should be mentioned after the name of the company in the balance sheet and P&L. The company needs to comply with the terms and conditions of the tribunal. Also, the memorandum of association should be suitably amended. है ना? So these are the requirements of what? Section 66. अब auditor को क्या करना है? See, simple. Auditor will verify whether the memorandum of association has been suitably amended. Auditor will ensure whether the company has complied with the terms and conditions of the tribunal. है ना? Auditor will check whether the word and reduced has been mentioned if required by the order of the tribunal. ठीक है? So these are the audit procedures that the auditor will have to perform. ठीक है? So just keep in mind as to what are the relevant requirements of section 66 of the Companies Act. जो requirements हैं, उन्हीं को auditor is going to verify. So let us have a look at it from the module. Reduction of capital. So first of all, let us have a look as to what are the various modes. कैसे कैसे कर सकते हैं. So this point number 8, the company may reduce the capital by reduction in unpaid capital, कि जो आपने, because there is surplus funds, so that capital which has not been called off, अब company is telling the shareholders कि हमें चाहिए भी नहीं. Reduction in unpaid capital, paying off excess capital, paid up capital, so the shareholders who have already paid अब उनको return कर रहे हैं. Cancellation of lost capital in case of loss making companies, है ना, so that capital which is not represented by the assets, है ना, तो उसको the company is what, reducing the capital in order to revalue such assets because they were what, overvalued. Clear? तो उसके लिए क्या चेक करना है, auditor will verify the adjustment made in, अच्छा नहीं, अभी तो ये समझ आ गया what are the various modes, है ना. Now, what all the auditor is going to verify. So for verifying the reduction of capital, the auditor needs to examine whether the company has followed the specific requirements of Section 66 of the Companies Act. The auditor shall undertake the following audit procedure. He'll verify the meetings whether special resolution has been passed and the meeting was properly convened and proposal was circularized in advance to all the shareholders, है ना. Verify whether article of association authorize करता है या नहीं. Examine that there should be no default with respect to repayment of deposits. Why? See, reduction of capital shall not be affected. Affected here means it shall not take place if the default exists. Why? Because on one hand there is a default, on the other hand you are returning the money to the shareholders, है ना? So this should not happen. Examine that the order of tribunal along with the copy of the order and minutes have been registered and filed with ROC. Thereafter, the auditor needs to check the registrar's certificate. Accounting entries को check करना है with respect to writing down of assets, है ना. The disclosure requirements as per Schedule 3. The evaluation of assets है तो उसके लिए there should be proper disclosure. And the register of members में auditor needs to consider whether adjustment has been made. Old share certificate should have been altered or new should have been issued in lieu of the old ones that should be cancelled. Confirm that the words and reduced if required by the auditor of the tribunal have been added to the name of the company in the balance sheet. Check if the company has complied with all terms and conditions imposed by tribunal and memorandum of association should be suitably amended. Is it clear? Is it clear? Yes, Dhyanesh, you are correct. Is it clear? Okay. Now, the topic that is left with respect to share capital is what? Your disclosure requirements. Okay. So again, here I'd like to tell you, if anybody is referring to old module, please do not do that. Refer to the soft copies available on the ICI portal, BOS knowledge portal. Okay. I hope it is clear. अभी तक हमने क्या क्या पढ़ा? We have studied as to how the auditor will verify the existence, the completeness, the valuation of the share capital. Thereby, we studied about the shares issued at a premium, Section 52, shares issued at a discount, Section 53, and sweat equity shares, that is Section 54, followed by discussion with respect to Section 66, reduction of share capital. Now, with respect to disclosure requirements, let us do this topic from the module itself. So, very simple, Hana. Ensure whether the following disclosure requirements of Schedule 3, Part 1 to the Companies Act have been complied with. Now, a student is sending me a query that, ma'am, can we get a question whereby we are asked to answer with respect to share capital also, share capital, existence, completeness, verification, securities, premium, the shares issued at a discount, reduction of capital? See, obviously not now. You may get questions for 3 to 4 marks with respect to chunks, like some topics. Okay? Is it clear? Okay? So, Pranav, it will depend upon the order of the tribunal. ठीक है. So for each class of share capital, now we are discussing what disclosure requirements, and you all know that part 1 of schedule 3 to the Companies Act, it is about what the disclosure requirements which are to be given in the with respect to the balance sheet items. ठीक है. So for each class of share capital, which includes what your preference share as well as your equity share capital, the company will have to separately disclose various things, which are what the amount, the number and amount of shares authorized. So with respect to each class, है ना, equity है, preference है, the company needs to separately disclose what the number and amount of shares authorized, then the number of shares what issued, subscribed, fully paid, subscribed but not fully paid. Clear? The par value per share. Then a reconciliation of the number of shares outstanding at the beginning and at the end of the reporting period. That is during the year, if any shares have been issued, like opening, plus minus, and the closing. Such reconciliation should be given. Okay? Is it clear? Point number E. The company also needs to disclose with respect to each class of shares, the respective rights, the preferences, the restrictions, Hana. So there are certain differences with respect to voting rights of shares. So everything needs to be mentioned in the notes that the company is going to give with respect to the share capital. Okay? Also, the company needs to reflect this. F point says that with respect to each class, the company needs to mention that what are the number of shares that are held by the holding of the company, by the subsidiary or associate of such holding. Okay? So let's say my client is A Limited and the holding of A Limited is B Limited. So what are the shares in respect of each class which are held by B Limited? And if any subsidiary or associate of B Limited is also holding any share in A Limited, that is also should to be given. Okay? Same way, if any shares are held by, let's say, the ultimate holding, which is C Limited in this case. So C Limited is holding any shares in A Limited, then that shares, further the shares held by subsidiary or associate of C Limited, that also need to be mentioned specifically. So let us read this point. Shares in respect of each class in the company held by its holding, so B Limited here, or its ultimate holding, which is C Limited here, including shares held by or by subsidiaries or associates of what holding company or the ultimate holding company in aggregate. Clear? Is it clear? Then, if any of the shareholder is holding the shares in the company which are more than 5% of the total shares, then the company needs to mention that also. So shares in the company held by each shareholder holding more than 5% shares, specifying the number of shares held. Clear? Then if any shares are reserved under any options, like if the company has reserved some shares to be issued, let's say under ESOP, then such thing is also to be disclosed separately here. Then if, let's say, on the date of balance sheet, 31st March, let's say 2022, this is our date of balance sheet. 5 years immediately preceding 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. If during these years, any of the shares have been issued for consideration other than cash, if any of the shares have been issued for bonus shares, if any of the shares have been brought back under section 68, such information should also be disclosed. So for a period of 5 years immediately preceding the date at which the balance sheet is prepared, है ना, यहाँ पर इससे 5 साल पहले, immediately preceding, then the aggregate number of class of shares as fully paid up pursuant, what is this? Pursuant to contracts without payment being received in cash. Then aggregate number and class of shares allotted as fully paid by way of bonus shares, and aggregate number of class of shares that are bought back. Is it clear? Then The securities which are convertible into equity shares. So if any of the securities are there which are convertible into equity shares, that is to be mentioned along with the date of such conversion starting from the farthest date, that is in the descending audit order, कि सबसे बाद में कौन सा convert होगा, फिर कौन सा होगा, फिर कौन सा होगा, and like that. So terms of any securities convertible into equity shares issued along with the earliest date of conversion in descending order starting from the farthest such date, है ना, जो सबसे बाद में होगा then and then, ठीक है. So in that descending order, the shares, if they are convertible to the securities, if they are convertible to equity or preference shares, such information should also be disclosed. Any calls unpaid and more specifically by directors and officers, कि directors and officers ने भी कुछ unpaid रखा है, then what is that amount? Any forfeited shares amount originally paid, that should also be considered, that should also be disclosed. And very important, see, chances are less that you will get a full-fledged question with respect to disclosure, but you can always get a 3-marker question with respect to this point, that what are the disclosure requirement with respect to the shareholding patterns of the promoters, Hana? So what is that? The shares held by the promoter at the end of the year. So the company needs to give the name of the promoter, what are the number of shares, and what is the percentage of total shares, and if during the year there has been some percentage change in the shares, then that is to be specifically given. Promoter here means what? Promoter as defined in Companies Act 2013, and details shall be given for each class of shares. Preference shares bhi hai, equity bhi hai, to sabke liye hi the information is to be given. Percentage change shall be computed with respect to number of shares from the beginning, and if the shares have been issued during the year, then from the date of such issue. समझ आता है? तो see, these are the disclosure requirements, very very important, है ना? Shareholder pattern, shares held by the promoters of the at the end of the year. तो promoter name देना है, number of shares देना है, total number of shares देना है, percentage change देना है, and here promoter means the promoter defined in Companies Act 2013. The details are to be given with respect to each class, and percentage change कहाँ से देखना है? From the beginning, on if the shares have been issued during the year, then from the date of issue of such shares. Simple है, clear है? देखो बहुत simple है. If you will just give a reading once or twice ना, I'm sure that आपको ये समझ आ जाएगा, and you will be able to remember the keywords and the points also. So quickly tell me, is the disclosure requirement clear to all of you? So we have completed the audit with respect to one of the item of financial statement, which is what? Share capital. Students, with respect to share capital, now there is one topic which I'm not doing it right now. Utilization of borrowed funds and share premium. This we'll be doing maybe in the next session. Okay, so I've left this topic on page number 9.16. Apart from this topic, tell me, is the topic till page number 9.15 clear? Be it assertion, be it the securities premium, share discount, everything, whether everything is clear or not. Then we'll be starting with the next topic, which is what? Your reserves and surplus. Audit of another item of financial statement, which is what? Reserves and surplus. So please, I need more replies. अभी ध्यानेश, आलोक ने बोला है, प्रणव ने बताया है कि क्लियर है, ज्योति ने बताया है, पीयूष ने बताया है, and आलोक ने. I need replies from others also. Then we'll be starting with what? The next topic, which is reserves and surplus. Quickly send in your replies, students, and others who have already said that, ma'am, it is clear. Tell me, what are reserves? Quickly send in your replies. What are reserves? Quickly. I'm waiting for your replies. So you are saying ma'am clear. ठीक है. अब Harish Chandran and Yatiraj are saying ma'am reserves are accumulate undistributed profits. Okay. Tell me whether reserves are appropriation out of profits or these are charged against the profits. So Pranav is saying these are appropriated. But Pranav, आगे वाले words are not correct. ठीक है? So let us have a look at this from the module. So what are reserves? Yes, appropriation. So reserves are the amount which are appropriated out of profits and that are not intended to meet any liability. Pranav, is it clear now? Not intended to meet any liability, contingency, commitment or diminution in the value of assets. है ना? So these are what appropriation out of profits. कि अगर profits है तो आप reserves बना रहे हो. But provision is what? A charge against the profits. That is, they have to be, provision is to be provided for even if there are no profits, right? But reserves are what? These are appropriation out of profits and these are not intended to meet any liability. But these are what? These are available for what? Distribution as dividend. है ना? And so yes, absolutely correct. Appropriation. Kanhaiya is saying, ma'am, these are appropriation. Khojima is also saying this thing. Yatiraj, Priyanka, which is absolutely correct. Okay? So reserves are what? These are appropriation out of profits and these are not intended to meet any particular liability. अगर टैक्स की कोई लाइबिलिटी मीट करनी है तो उसके लिए तो प्रोविजन फॉर टैक्सेशन बनेगा ना, है ना? बट रिजर्व्स आर व्हाट? दीज आर फ्री फॉर डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन as dividend, right? So reserves are created out of surplus of, basically I can say, from the ordinary course of business. जो profits आते हैं उसमें से हम क्या बनाते हैं? Reserves. ठीक है? Now see, revenue reserves और capital reserves में क्या difference है? So revenue reserves जो create होते हैं ना, those are created out of the profits from the ordinary course of business. कि आपके P&L में जो profit आ रहा था उसमें से आपने कुछ reserve में लगा दिया. ठीक है? You have made what? A revenue reserve. ठीक है? Like your general reserve. है ना? And such reserves are what? Available for distribution to shareholders or may be used to supplement divisible profits in what? Lean years. कि let's say this year there is no profit but last year के profits हैं. Lean is what? Which is not so good. जहां पर profits नहीं है. Just a minute. Not so good. है ना? तो जहां पर प्रॉफिट्स नहीं है तो अब लास्ट ईयर के यूज कर सकते हो ना. और टू फाइनेंस एन एक्सटेंशन ऑफ बिजनेस और टू ऑगमेंट द वर्किंग कैपिटल ऑफ द बिजनेस और टू जनरली स्ट्रेंथन द कंपनीज फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन. सो स्टूडेंट्स, यू मे गेट अ क्वेश्चन कि रेवेन्यू रिजर्व कहाँ कहाँ यूज हो सकते हैं. अब अ वेरी गुड टॉपिक फॉर योर व्हाट? एमसीक्यू. डायरेक्ट इस पे क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग आर रेवेन्यू रिजर्व्स और विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग आर नॉट रेवेन्यू रिजर्व्स और विच ऑफ द फॉलोइंग आर नॉट एग्जाम्पल ऑफ कैपिटल रिजर्व्स, है ना? और फॉर व्हाट पर्पसेस कैपिटल रिजर्व कैन नॉट बी यूज्ड और रेवेन्यू रिजर्व्स कैन नॉट बी यूज्ड. ठीक है? सो दीज आर व्हाट? रेवेन्यू रिजर्व्स क्या होते हैं? जो आपके ऑर्डिनरी कोर्स ऑफ बिजनेस का जो प्रॉफिट्स है उसमें से जो आपने अप्रोप्रिएट किया, दैट आर व्हाट? योर रेवेन्यू रिजर्व. नाउ व्हाट आर कैपिटल रिजर्व्स? So these are not available for free for distribution. These are available only for limited purposes. Give me an example of capital reserve. अभी हमने पढ़ा ना एक, give me that example. Securities premium, है ना? या capital redemption reserve, है ना? So capital reserve is created from capital profits earned through, let's say, example, sale of assets. Yes, profit on sale of shares. So capital reserves कहाँ से आते हैं आपके? From the profits out of specific transaction. कोई certain transaction हुआ है, like sale of fixed assets. अब ये कोई ordinary course of business तो नहीं है. So this is what your capital reserves. And these are not available for, these are not free for distribution, but for specific purposes. For example, you all have already done section 52, securities premium account. You all know that what are the purposes for which can be used. Same way, capital redemption reserve, section 55. There are certain purpose for which it can be used, not available for distribution as dividend. Clear? Now, again, when the auditor has to verify the reserves and surplus, tell me what is the first step. मेरे को movement देखना है reserves का. Tell me what should be my first step. Quickly tell me. अब तो share capital का कर लिया ना? Yes, absolutely correct. Jyoti, Dhyanesh, Ayushi, Pranav. टेल मी क्या फर्स्ट स्टेप होगा अगर मेरे को रिजर्व्स का एग्जिस्टेंस कंप्लीटनेस वैल्यूएशन देखना है. अगेन आई विल कंपेयर व्हाट द बैलेंस विद द प्रीवियस ईयर ऑडिटेड फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. ठीक है. सो कंपेयर द ओपनिंग बैलेंस विद द प्रीवियस ईयर एंड द क्लोजिंग बैलेंस ड्यूरिंग द ईयर विद द प्रीवियस ईयर फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट. Tell me और क्या समझ आता है. What can be the other procedures to verify the balances of reserves and surplus? Quickly send in your replies. Correct. ठीक है. Then the auditor needs to verify what are the additions or utilization in the current year. ठीक है. For example, these are the examples. Let us try to understand one of the reserves, one of the your general reserves and one of your capital reserve. ठीक है. Now with respect to the P&L, है ना, the auditor needs to trace the movement. Auditor may inspect what the statement of changes in equity, because statement of changes in equity में dividend amount होगा ना, statement of changes in equity में change in share capital होगा ना, so auditor needs to consider that. Further, if any dividend has been paid during the year, then the resolution with respect to the recommendation and the declaration, the resolution of the meeting of board of directors and the shareholders, auditor needs to consider that. ठीक है. Further, students, AS4, quickly tell me what is the name of accounting standard 4 and what is the role of accounting standard 4 with respect to dividend. ठीक है. So your AS4 is what? It is contingencies and events occurring after the balance sheet date. है ना? So it says that, so let us have, if dividend to holder of equity instruments are proposed or declared after the balance sheet date, तो क्या वो liability की तरह show करेंगे? नहीं. But that will be shown in the notes to accounts. So if dividends to holders of equity instruments are proposed or declared after the balance sheet date, an entity should not recognize these dividends as liability as at the balance sheet date. It should, however, disclose the amounts of dividend that were proposed or declared after the balance sheet date, but before the financial statements are approved. So the disclosure is to be given. Okay, is it clear? So this was with respect to what your P&L, and then with respect to security premium, we all have already done that. Verify the resolution, transfer to separate securities premium account, and what is the purpose. Auditor needs to consider that. As simple as that with respect to reserves and surplus. Is it clear? Is it clear? Now, what are the disclosure requirements with respect to your reserves and surplus? Simple. So ensure whether the disclosure requirements of Schedule 3 Part 1 to the Companies Act 2013 have been complied with. So auditor will ensure whether these disclosures have been made or not. So reserves and surplus shall be classified as capital reserves, CRR, securities premium, and all these reserves. Okay. Further, other reserves like the purpose, the nature should be mentioned. Clear? Then, in case of the surplus, balance in statement of profit and loss account, disclosing whatever appropriations of dividend, bonus, whatever has been done, that will also be disclosed by the company in the notes to accounts. Further, any additions or deductions since the last balance sheet is to be shown. How it is to be shown, it is mentioned here. So basically a reconciliation of opening and closing. So balance at the beginning of the reporting period. of, let's say, P&L balance is there. So what is the opening balance? What is the changes, if any, and if it is on account of change in accounting policy? Total profit and loss during the year. So what is the addition during the year? Has any dividend been paid? Has any amount been transferred to the retained earning, or any other change has been done? What is the balance at the reporting period? So with respect to each reserve, the company is going to disclose it in the notes to accounts. Okay? Further, in case any reserve is represented by way of earmarked investment. What is meant by earmarked investment? Quickly send in your reply. Earmarked investments क्या होते हैं? Send in your replies. So which are reserved for some specific purpose, like your sinking fund, है ना? कोई fund create कर देते हो ना? So that will be shown as what? A fund. ठीक है? Like your debenture redemption fund. So earmarked is what? Reserved for some specific purpose. So that will not be, the term reserve will not be mentioned, but what will be mentioned? Fund. Clear? Is it clear? ठीक है? And even if there is a debit balance in the P&L, that will be shown where? In the reserves head only. ठीक है? So debit balance of statement of profit and loss account shall be shown as negative figure under the surplus, even if the resulting figure is negative. ठीक है? So it is not to be taken on the asset side. Yes, funds invested for some specific purpose. ठीक है? Funds set aside for some specific purpose. ठीक है? So that will be shown as what? Fund. Right? Sinking fund, your debenture redemption fund. Is it clear? बहुत छोटा सा है reserves and surplus. बहुत simple है. But हाँ, you need to go through these specific points. So let us just quickly have a look as to what we have done so far, and then we'll be starting with the next topic, which is what? Audit of another item of financial statement, which is borrowings. Meanwhile, please send in your replies agar queries, if there are any queries, है ना? So abhi tak what we have done in this chapter, we have understood the concept of assertions with respect to the income statement, with respect to the balance sheet captions also, balance sheet items also, है ना? Then we started discussing the audit procedure with respect to share capital, whereby we have understood that in order to establish the existence, completeness, or valuation assertion, the auditor need to perform various procedures. What are these? Let us refer to this summary also. So auditor will check the balance with the, just a minute, the balance appearing as at the period end with the balance appearing in the audited financial statement of the last year. If there is no change, obtain a confirmation from the company secretary. In case there is a change, memorandum of association के limits में, authorized capital के limits में है नहीं, to check, for that auditor needs to check what? Memorandum of association, resolution copies, board of directors या shareholders का. Fresh issue है, then various provisions of Companies Act, return of allotment, minimum subscription, minimum application money, separate bank account, payment of underwriting commission, auditor needs to consider that. Shares at a discount, section 53, auditor needs to consider that shares should not be issued as at a discount, and अगर issue हुए हैं तो दो cases होने चाहिए, that is section 54, sweat equity shares, and what? Your debt restructuring. ठीक है? Issued for cash है या for consideration other than cash है? For consideration other than cash can be issued to promoters and underwriters. Also, the auditor will see whether the SEBI regulations guidelines have been met. Then the various forms that are filed with MCA like SS7, PAS3, and the form to be filed with RBI when the foreign direct investment has been made by non-resident shareholder, form FCGPR. In those forms, the auditor will also verify the number of securities issued, issue price, and whether the stamp, and also the next point is what? In case of increase in share capital, whether fees and stamp duty has been paid to MCA. Shares issued at a premium, section 52. So there is no restriction as such by the Companies Act on a company to issue shares at a premium, but yes, that amount should be transferred to a separate account, that premium account. amount, and that can be utilized for specific purposes also only. So auditor needs to consider कि transfer हुआ है नहीं and specific purpose के लिए ही use हुआ है या नहीं. With respect to shares at a discount, we have seen that shares issued at a discount is void, but Section 54 sweat equity shares can be issued at a discount. Or in case of debt restructuring, where it is as per the guidelines of RBI, so the company may issue the shares at a discount to the creditors, that is the bankers in this case. If the company fails to comply with the provisions, then the company and the officer in default, they are liable to a penalty which may extend up to the amount raised or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is lower. And the company will have to refund all the monies received along with the interest at the rate of 12%. Pranav, with respect to your query, I'll confirm it to you in the next session. Okay? Auditor to verify the movement in share capital, verify the discount, whether these are issued at discount by going through the reading minutes of the meetings, and verify whether if they are issued, then it should be Section 54 या debt restructuring. Issue of sweat equity shares. Sweat equity shares होते क्या हैं? You all are aware, Section 54 deals with the provisions. So auditor will see whether the provisions of Section 54 have been complied with or not. So these should be a class of shares which have already been issued, and by way of what? Special resolution. The resolution should specify number of shares, current market price, the consideration at which is it issued, and the class of employees and directors to which the shares are issued. Listed है तो SEBI के regulations, not listed है the rules as may be prescribed, and the rights, the litigation, the limitations, the restrictions of the sweat equity shareholder shall rank pari passu with the other equity shareholders. If other equity shareholders are getting dividend, they should also get. So right, restrictions, limitations should be same. Reduction of share capital में Vinayak, I have told you na, if the what is your doubt, Vinayaka? So if it is not complied, then these are the provision. Na? The auditor will see whether the payment has been done or not, the amount has been refunded or not, along with the interest. Right, Vinayaka? Then with respect to reduction of capital, so first of all, we saw that it can be three modes, like the company is not calling for the unpaid capital or paying off the excess paid up capital, or in case of loss making company where the assets are not shown by the capital is not represented by the assets, in that case representation, cancellation of the loss capital. So basically an internal reconstruction, है ना, where the shareholders are sacrificing their capital, है ना. ठीक है. Adjustment made. Okay, so what we were doing, that special resolution should be passed. Article of association should authorize the company to do so, and there should not be any default in repayment of deposits. NCLT ka order along with the minutes of the meeting need to be filed with ROC, after which ROC will issue what? The registrar certificate, which auditor needs to consider. Accounting entries को check करना है, disclosure requirements as per schedule 3. Further, अगर revaluation of assets है, like यहाँ पर, then it should be properly disclosed, right? Adjustment in members register, old certificate to be cancelled or altered, and if they are cancelled, new to be issued. Word and reduced to be used if required by order of tribunal, and terms and conditions of tribunal, whether these have been complied with or not, and the memorandum of association, whether it has been suitably amended or not. We will be writing all these things, that auditor will verify this, auditor will check this, auditor will ensure whether this has been done or not. With respect to the disclosure requirement, we have done it in quite detail from your module. Okay. So I told you that with respect to the shareholding pattern of the promoters, very, very important. Anna? So auditor needs to see whether such disclosure has been done or not. Disclosure requirement किसके लिए है? Management के लिए. पर management ने तो ये assert किया है ना, that we have done everything as per the Companies Act. तो auditor will check कि ऐसा हुआ है या नहीं. How? By inspecting the financial statements, by seeing whether such disclosure has been made or not, और ये जो भी details आ रहे हैं, whether these are correct or not. ठीक है? This topic I have left. Then we have done reserves and surplus. So we saw that reserves are what? These are the appropriations out of profit, which are what? Available for distribution as dividend. है ना? So these are not meant to meet any liability or contingency or any commitment. Reserves may be revenue reserves or capital reserves. So revenue are what? Okay, reserves are what? These are appropriation out of profits. And the reserves which are available for distribution to shareholders are what? Your revenue reserves. But the reserves which are for limited purposes only, these are what? Capital reserves. Okay. Now, what are the audit procedures? Again, trace and tally the opening balance of reserves to the previous audited financial statement, and see the example with respect to P&L is given here, and the example with respect to securities premium is given here. ठीक है, सिक्योरिटीज प्रीमियम तो वी हैव डन है ना, तो पीएनएल का चेक कर लेते हैं. सो ऑडिटर विल ट्रेस द मूवमेंट. स्टेटमेंट ऑफ चेंजेस इन इक्विटी में भी चेक कर सकते हैं. व्हाई? बिकॉज डिविडेंड अमाउंट, फ्रेश इश्यू ऑफ कैपिटल, एवरीथिंग विल बी मेंशन्ड देयर. रेजोल्यूशंस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द डिविडेंड शुड बी चेक्ड, है ना. And AS4 का auditor will see that if any of the dividend has been declared, proposed after the balance sheet date, it need not be shown as what? Your liability, but it should be disclosed where? In the notes to accounts. Okay? And these are the disclosure requirements. Okay? Is it clear? Quickly send in your replies. Quickly send in your replies. Then we'll be starting with the discussion on the next topic, which is what? Borrowings. Quickly send in your replies, students, with respect to borrowings, with respect to the topics that we have covered. So we will not be able to complete or, as such, discuss this topic of borrowings in detail. But let us just touch upon this topic so that next session में आपको थोड़ा बहुत understanding तो रहेगा. ठीक है? So आलोक, हरीशन, ध्यानेश, हीरल, आयुषी, प्रणव, प्रियंका, ज्योति, विनायक, आलोक are saying ma'am it is clear. Now tell me, borrowings क्या होते हैं? Borrowings. So will they appear on the asset side or the liability side? Dhyanesh, I'll take the MCQs from the next session onwards. Okay? We will discuss your RTPs also, but from the next session. We will discuss that case scenario booklet also, but in the next session. So borrowings are what? These are the liabilities, the financial obligations. है ना? So borrowings may include your loan taken from, let's say, a bank. Okay? Now, students, tell me, let's say I've asked you to verify. Acha, before this now, please note that the next session is on Sunday, 27th November, evening session. It is on Sunday. Please note this. है ना? Monday को भी we have a session, but before that we will be meeting on Sunday also. Please note this. Okay? Now with respect to borrowings, tell me, let's say a loan is taken from bank. Tell me, if I ask you to verify such loan, what all documents will you inspect? Or what all audit procedures will you perform? है ना? Quickly कुछ बताओ. I'm sure you will be able to answer. Yes, borrowing includes both short-term, long-term. Priyanka, you are right. Tell me, है ना? कुछ documents, a general discussion, and then we will end the session for today. But general discussion for the next 2 minutes. Quickly tell me, borrowing, कोई लोन लिया है ना? अब उसकी बहुत सारी assertions check करनी है आपको. That whether this loan actually existence assertion, whether जितना भी borrowings आ रहा है, whether that is complete, whether it is taken during the year, whether the valuation is correct, whether obligation company का ही है ना, ऐसा तो नहीं है कि B लिमिटेड ने लिया और A लिमिटेड के बुक्स में आ रहा है, and whether आपका presentation and disclosure as per schedule 3 है या नहीं. ठीक है? So tell me, देखो कुछ agreement होगा ना, loan agreement. So auditor will verify that. ठीक है. यस, खोजेमाई सिंह एक्सटर्नल कंफर्मेशन ले सकते हैं ना बैंक से. सो SA 505 का नॉलेज आ गया इधर. ठीक है. मिनट्स ऑफ द मीटिंग अप्रूविंग सच लोन्स, तो minutes can be checked. Dhyanesh correct. Pranav confirmation from the bank SA 505. ठीक है. ज्योति सिंह मैम लोन अकाउंट और बैंक अकाउंट को भी तो देख सकते हैं ना. हाँ करेक्ट. ध्रुवी सिंह लोन अग्रीमेंट. ठीक है. हिरली सिंह loan agreement. Hemlata is also saying loan agreement. Yes, written representation भी ले सकते हैं मैनेजमेंट से. आलोक is saying. ठीक है. ठीक है. So these are the various documents that the auditor can verify. And students, you will be happy to see that जो points अभी आपने बनाए हैं ना, exactly same points are appearing as audit procedures in your module also. So I am happy that now you are able to think technically as to what all documents the auditor must obtain while he's checking the various items of financial statement. ठीक है. So अभी I'll not start this topic as such. अभी हमने एक बहुत ही general understanding लिया है. ठीक है. But my request to all of you is that before coming for the session on Sunday, please go through the module till page number 9.20 except for the notes under the head share capital that we have left. ठीक है. Apart from that note, please students, if you start making summaries here, है ना, बहुत easily बन सकते हैं ना. देखो जैसे यहां पर आपका था, लेट मी जस्ट गिव यू एन एग्जांपल. सो तो अब यहां पर इजीली लिख सकते हो ना, स्पेशल रेजोल्यूशन, प्रॉपरली कन्वीन मीटिंग, है ना, आर्टिकल ऑफ एसोसिएशन ऑथराइज. तो ऐसे समराइज करो पूरे चैप्टर को. दैट इज गोइंग टू हेल्प यू टू रिमेंबर द कीवर्ड्स and to also revise at the time of your examination, like in the days of your examination. Okay. So I hope the topics that we have covered so far is clear. And students, yes, we will be discussing the various MCQs and the last year papers with respect to this chapter. I've already told you that this is a very, very important chapter with respect to your examination point of view also. So hoping that whatever we have done so far is clear to all of you. If any of your doubts is left, I'll definitely take them up in the next session. Pranav, your doubt will be taken up in the next session. Okay? Apart from that, I hope everything is clear. So see you on Sunday in evening 6 to 8:30. We have a session on Monday also, but before that we'll be meeting on Sunday. So please don't miss that session. Very important session. We'll try to cover all the balance sheet items on that day, like the balance sheet items that we can cover considering the time constraint. Okay. So Dhyanesh is saying, ma'am, it is clear. Others also please reply and thank you, and please start studying and come to the next session after going through the module till page number 9.20. So students, thank you and good night.